Hey everybody, Darren here. Uh, Time for another head-to-head. And if you can't tell by the title of it, or my hat, or what's playing in the background, I'm going to be doing Rush. My favorite band since, I think, 1983. Well, I shouldn't say that. I hated Rush when I first heard them. Hated them. Couldn't get into them. I thought they were stupid. I didn't. But I think I was 11 years old. And then when I heard Moving Pictures, I think I heard it I must have heard it a couple of times. Guy down the street was a huge Rush fan. And he was a couple years older than me. And my first album that I ever heard was Moving Pictures. And to this day, Rush is my favorite band, which is funny. And Moving Pictures is my favorite album from Rush. There's not a bad song on that album. There's not a laxed song. There's not a boring song. There's not a song that is, well, that could, it's okay. It's great on the album, but it could have gone somewhere else. Nothing of that. Start to finish, the 48 minutes or whatever that album is, or however long that album is, it's a gem. But I'm going to be talking about the very first Rush, and I'm going to compare it to Rush's last studio album, which came out in 2012, and that is a Clockwork Angels. It's a cool cover, nice and thick. I like it when they put it on 180 gram vinyl. Okay, so I'm not going to get into the whole nitty-gritty of Rush, as it would be long and boring. I mean, if you're a Rush fan, it's not. But if you're like a guy that was just watching this video just for, kind of checking it out and going, yeah, this is kind of a cool concept, and that I want to keep it relatively short. I don't want to be here for an hour boring the crap out of you guys. So I'll give you a brief little thing, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it. So Rush was formed in 1968 by Alex Lifeson, and I believe there was a couple other guys, but Geddy soon got into the band relatively close to the very beginning anyways. But I know Rush as we know it was formed by Geddy and Alex. And on drums was this guy, John Rutsey. Now, he only lasted in the band for just for a few years. He was a straightforward rock and roll drummer, and when that album came out, that's what they were looking for. But they were kind of progressing in sound and trying different things and going kind of in the progressive mode. And that's when they kind of made an executive decision to get a new drummer. Anyways, so when you pick this album up, that's exactly what you're getting. Came out in 1974. You're getting a straightforward hard rock. Maybe back then, in those standards, maybe not today so much, but in those standards back then, heavy metal. But in today's standards, more of a hard rock kind of band. Kind of like in the vein of, I hear Led Zeppelin in there, like stuff like Bad Company, King Crimson back in the day. Those kind of hard rock bands, Deep Purple, that straightforward kind of time, chord progression kind of stuff. Just nothing elaborate, just very straightforward hard rock. Now, if you compare it to this album, now bear in mind, this is all my opinion. This album here is kind of a 360 return to form, because Rush, as we all know, is kind of like Deep Purple, in the sense Deep Purple had these Mach 1, Mach 2, Mach 3 kind of deals, different band members, still the core, but different band members that, Glenn Hughes, David Coverdale, came and go. Tommy Bolin was in, I think, Deep Purple for a while. And then you've got the regulars that everybody knows. But with Rush, their Mach 1, Mach 2 kind of deal was their sound. So their earlier stuff was kind of a straightforward hard rock kind of deal. And then leading more and more up. And then when they got into stuff like 2112, that's when they really went progressive. Long songs. And, well, maybe not 2112. Yeah, 2112, because I think Hemispheres came after 2112. I'll tell you in a second. Now, if I'm wrong, yeah, so Fly By Night, Caress of Steel, 2112. So 2112 is when they started to get longer songs and kind of progress. And then Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres. Hemispheres was the big progressive, I think, progressive spot for Rush. And then Permanent Waves kind of moved back to the straightforward with moving pictures kind of deal. And that's when they started getting into their keyboard phase. And then, so you see the progression. Okay, so with Clockwork Angels, I was, as I do for these, I was listening to the two albums. And one pivotal point that shows Rush Clockwork Angels is, well, on this it would be the second song called Carnies. There's like a guitar lick in there that's an opening guitar riff that brought me right back to last song, second side, Working Man. That da-na-na-na-na-na. Okay, so that's that kind of style guitar riff that's on Clockwork Angels. And I think for me at that moment, that's when, to me, I realized that Rush had done a full circle in their music. They had gone from a hard rock band to, through all of these changes, keyboards, which they have elements on everything from that point on, but right back to a hard rock band. Now, Clockwork Angels, to me, is more of a heavy metal record than Rush. The guitar work is heavier on this. Now, I do have to point out the two major differences in these two releases was John Rutsey, Neil Peart. Now, where John Rutsey was a straightforward, I think his main influences were like Badfinger, BTO kind of stuff. The Guess Who. Neil Peart's, like, he was such an amazing drummer that he's got so many influences. Buddy Rich, like a lot of jazz stuff and a lot of progressive stuff, and that his drumming on this is just so much more than what it was on the first Rush album. Lyrically, Neil Peart took over lyrics pretty much after these. Now, I can't remember who wrote the lyrics, but all songs composed by Lee Lifeson. So I think at this point it might have been Alex and Getty that were writing the lyrics, whereas Neil kind of took over when he got into the band of writing all the lyrics. And they were kind of like, to me, kind of out there fantasy, just stuff that, you know, if you know Rush, then you'll know. And he was influenced by Ayn Rand, which I believe she was kind of like a philosopher kind of thing. And that's basically what their lyrics were like at the beginning. Yeah, so Their early stuff was sci-fi, philosophy, nature, emotions. And then they became like, yeah, so progressive rock. So this is, I use Encyclopedia Metallium. It's kind of like a reference point for some stuff, because Wikipedia is kind of not really. So, and their album covers, they were always done by, of course I'm going to forget now, Hugh Syme. And Hugh Syme, I think, if I remember correctly, did every single album cover aside from this one, I believe. Aside from this one, not sure. Album cover designed by Paul Weldon. So that's another difference, is that this one was not done by Hugh Syme as well. And every single Rush album, if I remember correctly, was done by Hugh Syme. And I have a huge book by Hugh Syme. It's called The Art of Rush, and he did all the album covers. So, music-wise, first Rush, straightforward hard rock. Clockwork Angels, straightforward heavy metal, with a lot of progressive elements in there. There's even some of their kind of like their 80s keyboard style song structures and stuff like that in there as well. But I found that this overall was probably the heaviest Rush album ever put out, in terms of guitar work, like the sound. Album covers, like I said, were really cool. They have that Hugh Syme feel to them. I actually went to a Rush convention a couple of years ago. I think it was in 2017, and actually met the guy that was the Star Child, or the Starman. Star Child is Kiss, sorry. So he was the Starman. I actually met him, Bob King, got his autograph and everything like that. Really cool guy. He's from around here in the city. He was the model that they modeled, that he used to model the star with the man in the star. So yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. What else is there? Okay, so in the background there is, I've got Rush Gold playing, which is a 2 CD set compilation. It's got everything in it. If you're not a Rush fan but you like some Rush, that's an album that you could grab because it has everything in it. But yeah, so what else can I say? Oh, I think too, the songs on this are genuinely longer than the songs on this. The average song, well, other than Working Man, is 7 minutes. Oh, well, here again is 7 minutes, over 7 minutes. But Need Some Love is only 2:16. Yeah, so your average probably is about 4.5 minutes. Whereas on these, your average song is about 5.5 minutes. And then Rush has got some long songs, like 2112, Temple of Syrinx is like a whole one side, 22 minutes long. They have been around for, well, they're finished now. They split up in 2018. So they were around from 68 to 2018. And really, the core of Rush from 69 to 2018 only ever had 4 members. And 3 of the 4 members stayed together for almost the duration of the career of the band. They had put out millions of albums, 19 in total, but sold millions and millions of records, toured the world. Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about too, is the vocals on this. You can tell that Geddy Lee is young on this album. His vocals are very high and are very powerful. When he belts those high-end vocals out and stuff like that. When you get to Clockwork Angels, I mean, you got a man that's probably pushing 60 at this point. I don't know exactly how old he is, but I'm going to say they put out a 40-year career, and he might have been 22 when he started. Even if he's 19, that takes him to 59 at this point. Well, maybe not at this point, but toward the end of the career. It's not, close to pushing 60 anyways. I don't know exactly where. So the vocal style had changed a lot in terms of high end. He's more kind of lower, kind of more a little more nasally sounding than the high pitched that kind of resonated early Rush albums. Anyway, Rush's very distinct sound. As soon as Geddy starts singing, it's Rush. You can tell that's Rush. You can't. Who else is gonna be like that? But I gotta say on these albums, this album and the later albums, to me the influences of the early hard rock bands are gone. Their influences, like I know that Geddy Lee's, I think from my understanding, he's a big Yes fan. He played in Yes. Roundabout. I can't remember where it was. Totally, it leaves me right now. But he played bass with Yes. They did Roundabout, which was fantastic. And Yes is another great band. So they had those progressive elements that the early days of like the Zeppelin, and you can hear some Zeppelin in the first album. You can hear, the early kind of hard rock bands like Aerosmith and kind of Deep Purple, that kind of straightforward hard rock drive that John Rutsey kind of influenced. But once Neil got in, they kind of waned away from all of that. And to me, Rush has done a complete full circle. So that's my head-to-head with Rush. It was inevitable because Rush is my favorite band. I mean, I could have done a whole hour-long thing and kind of mapped it all. I'm just talking all this talk off the kind of the top of my head, kind of how I perceive it. People are going to perceive it very differently. There are some guys that I know that their whole world is Rush. Rush. I love Rush, my favorite band, but I mean, come on. But these guys, they know all the ins and the outs, all the little Easter eggs, that how this ties with that and how they bring this element to that element, and they just tie it all together. Some of the facts that these guys know they're really interesting. I just don't know them. Like the interesting facts, so. But like I said, I'm doing this off the top of my head kind of thing, and just having fun with it. So anyways, that's my vid. I'm going to do some more because I really like these kind of head-to-head things. I think they're kind of cool. I'm going to do some Kiss ones, and I'm going to do all sorts of things. Different whatevers. I was going to do a band, Hatebreed. They're a hardcore crossover metal kind of band. And then I'm getting listening to it, and I'm like, well, you know what? Like, their sound hasn't changed from album to album. I still might do it just because. But anyways, before I ramble on here for hours and hours on end, that is my video on head-to-head on Rush. You guys take care. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you have, thank you very much. Comment any other bands you'd like to see me do. I know I've already had a list of different bands that people want covered. So yeah. Anyways, take care, guys. Cheers.